Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brenda Imelda Makoha. I will be your moderator for this webinar session. I am joined with our VP, Vice President of the East Africa Law Society, Mr. Ramadan Abubakar. I'm also joined with Mr. Agatin Idot from Uganda and Mr. Benjamin Jeru from Kenya. Karibuni sana. I will allow them to introduce themselves before we start the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. My name is Ramadan Abubakar. I'm the Vice President of the East Africa Law Society, and I'm also the Managing Partner of JK Kibicho, a law firm based in Nairobi and also in Kerugoya. We just celebrated our 50 years, so we've been existent as a law firm for the last 50 years. It's a pleasure to be here to address practitioners in the profession. So I look forward to very fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you, Bubeka. My name is Augustine Idot Obilil, a lawyer and partner practicing in the law firm Kampala Associated Advocates. It's a law firm based in Kampala, and unlike Abubeka, we only have one singular branch. We are a law firm that has been in existence for close to 23 years now. Again, slightly a younger firm compared to Abubeka's, but definitely a firm by many measures, one of the largest firms in the country. As a partner, I practice in the practice areas of employment law, technology law, information technology, and mostly also in the disputes resolution space, and increasingly over the last 3 years, putting one foot in the advisory space. I'm honored to be part of this panel that has been asked to discuss, the topic that we have to cover today: positioning yourself as a young advocate for online opportunities and legal practice using social media. It's an honor, and I look forward to fruitful engagements and deliberations, and also to learn from all the panelists and the people who are joining us this afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeru. I am the managing partner at M&W and Advocates LLP. It's a law firm based in Nairobi, Westlands area. And for the purposes of this webinar, I am a social media user. Yeah, so basically we'll get to learn more and engage as we go on. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Maybe we can start off with Mr. Ramadan Abubakar. You have a presentation for us.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if you can see my slide.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Just a minute. Yeah. Yes, the topic today is positioning yourself as a young advocate for online opportunities and legal practice legal practice and the usage of social media. Well, I'm guessing, Brenda, that I'm addressing young lawyers. Yeah. And for me, I also want to consider myself a young advocate, as despite our firm being existent for the past 50 years. Under the definitions of IBA, I believe I qualify as a young advocate. Very well. I think it's important for us to address the history in terms of Kenya, in terms of social media, because social media is very much intertwined with the issue of advertising for lawyers. So what is the jurisprudence, or what is the history in Kenya? And I believe this case law will also be important to other jurisdictions that do not allow advertising. Previously in Kenya, we had the advocate rules, and Rule 2 of that particular law banned expressively lawyers advertising. It is after this case where two lawyers, Okenyo Omwanza and Ndegwa Njiro, went to court, sued the Law Society of Kenya and the Attorney General, and also the Council of Legal Education in Kenya. And they were successful in challenging Rule 2 of the advocates' rules, where Justice Majanja found that the particular rule was unconstitutional by virtue of our new constitution, where Rule 2 provided for consumer rights, where our clients, or rather clients, have the right to know who they're engaging with and who they want to instruct. Who is this particular advocate? And that's why that particular rule was found to be unconstitutional, because the court found there is indeed need for lawyers to tell the consumers who they are and what they do. Also, Article 48 was of relevance because Article 48 guarantees the customers or consumers the right to access justice. And also in that particular case, there was a discussion on the Article 35, which is the access to information. Therefore, all consumers have this right to know who the counsel is, what is their expertise, and how can they assist. Therefore, you can have a read on this particular case. It's George Omwanza, as you can see the citation therein. You can have a look at this particular case and see how it is of relevance. It is after that particular case law that the advocates' marketing and advertising rules were established, as you can see that in 2014. This is under the leadership of Eric Mutua. Yeah. Then we also have the IBA, International Principles on Social Media Conduct for Legal Profession. The East Africa Law Society are members of the IBA. The Law Society of Kenya are equally members of the IBA. Therefore, every principle or regulation that is enacted in the AGM will be binding to all the members. Therefore, the IBA is of relevance to this particular discussion. We also have the LSK Code of Conduct and Ethics for advocates. This guides ourselves as Kenyan lawyers, which may also perhaps, even if they are relevant, other jurisdictions can also borrow from what we have enacted. Under the IBA, which was adopted on the 24th of May, 2014, you realize it was 2014, that's where most of these regulations were being made, specifically for Kenya and now internationally, yeah, in the International Bar Association. This guidance aims to alert bar associations and regulatory bodies of the challenges in order to promote and encourage professionally responsible social media usage within the legal profession. It has developed a set of 6 principles, which are independence, integrity, responsibility, confidentiality, maintaining public confidence, and policy, where a particular practitioner is posting on social media. You'll agree with me that the issue of integrity is very important. Responsibility, of course, is also important, and maintaining public confidence, because lawyers are an integral part of the society. Under the Kenyan 2014 rules, in this particular rules, a reading of the rules, you'll notice that there's a concentration on print media, but the same also applies to social media. If you have a look at Rule 7, it also discusses that when one is posting on their website or any other social media platform, then they should be objective, they should be truthful, the posts should be dignified, respectful of professional ethics, and does not denigrate another advocate or the profession. Yeah, the rules also give powers to advocates to advertise in a website or any other digital platform. Yes, I've said that. Yeah. The rules provide the contents an advocate may abide by, in an advertisement. The identity of the advocate, the date the advocate was admitted, the address and other information of the advocate, the academic or professional qualifications of an advocate, any contribution the advocate may have made in a published article or legislative bill. I'll have a discussion. I'll discuss more on the particular attributes that have been discussed in that particular rule. We also have the LSK Code of Conduct and Ethics, which also guide the usage of social media, where you find any, under Rule 10, any inappropriate use of social media, particularly in a manner that undermines the standing and dignity of the legal profession, is professional misconduct. Therefore, all lawyers, rather in the Kenyan space, should be aware of this particular regulation, because you don't want to be found to be of professional misconduct. So which platforms are existent and can we utilize for purposes of our branding and boosting our practice? For me, I consider LinkedIn to be a very important space for professional advertising, or rather boosting your legal practice, because LinkedIn is mostly for professionals, and where you find most of the users are either seeking employment, maybe seeking employment, or seeking to advance their careers and professional expertise. So LinkedIn is a very important space. I believe every lawyer should have a LinkedIn account. Yeah, Twitter is equally important. Twitter, I can't say that it may be strictly professional, yeah, because you find it's a hybrid where you also post your social and other issues that may be of relevance, maybe news. But yeah, Twitter is an exception, because Twitter can be a hybrid. Facebook, equally the same, can also be a hybrid, but I believe we can also maybe have more weight in terms of professional posts. YouTube is also important. Same applies to TikTok. Yeah, depends on how you intend to use these particular platforms. For TikTok, I know there is a lawyer in Kenya who's successfully used TikTok, and he also won an award, yeah, for the Young Lawyer of the Year. This is Bob Muigai, for his posts in terms of educating the society on matters law. We also have websites. I believe every law firm should have a website, because first thing you do when you give a client perhaps your business card, they will look for your website to see in terms of how it looks, will also have an impact in terms of how they find you or how they rate you. So have a good website. Yeah, you can also, in terms of for the websites, you can be making several posts on this particular websites, be it articles, just to show your expertise, and you don't know who may land on your website. We have podcasts. This also, it's a new platform, but it's been existent for a while. You can also use that and to educate and to sell yourself, brand yourself. The beauty about podcasts is that they are not resource intense. You can just easily do that from the comfort of your house, office, or wherever you are. We also have news alerts. News alerts are very important, because sometimes, I can give you an example. I had a conversation with one of our clients that we've been representing for the past 6 or so years. And one thing he mentioned is that he appreciates the news alerts that we usually give them. Yeah, just to tell them in terms of what are the developments of the law in their particular field, what are the changes. So news alerts are very good, because they give, it's a value addition. Yeah, they appreciate the value addition. It's not a matter of you taking from them. The clients also need to take from you. Yeah, what value are you adding? So I believe news alerts are a good platform, in terms of they're a good idea in terms of just having engagement constantly with your clients. Yeah, we also have WhatsApp and emails. If there's something that you find relevant, then you can use these particular platforms. You can also engage with your client on WhatsApp, depending on what is relevant. Also, the news alerts, you can send them via emails. Perhaps also, being that we're on WhatsApp and emails, let me also mention that in terms of, you'll find the WhatsApp is mostly your mobile number. Yeah, so in fact, somebody mentioned to me the other day that on my, I had called them, but they hadn't saved my number. So my name appeared as Ramadan Wakili on Truecaller. So that shows that now the moment you call someone, he can identify you with a particular, maybe depending on how guys have saved you, but it shows in terms of if someone has saved me as Wakili or several people have saved you as Wakili, that means on Truecaller, that's how you will appear. Yeah. So what is my point? My point is how you engage on WhatsApp is very, very crucial in terms of social media usage and branding. You see now WhatsApp has the issue of WhatsApp status. I wouldn't want a scenario where a lawyer is, we're right from the long weekend. It will be very unfortunate that for the whole period of the whole weekend, you've been posting yourself dancing in clubs, for the status updates, because you don't know who will see this particular video. You have your clients who have that particular number and who are also on WhatsApp. Yeah. When it comes to emails, have a professional email. Have a professional email. By professional, I mean, if let's say my email, let it be Ramadan at, my firm is JK Kibicho, Ramadan at jkkibicho.co.ke. Not Ramadan 72 at yahoo.com. Yeah, in fact, 72 having the number there loses the professionalism. Yahoo loses the, the professional address that is needed when giving out an email. Some of the clients will be very, very specific on some of these things, and they can be pet peeves to some of them. In terms of social media usage, there's been a question that has been lingering in my mind. How do you separate professionalism from your personal and social, as we've just discussed? Be it the Facebook, yeah, do I strictly use, do I have separate accounts for this, for my social usage, for my professional use? Yeah, I believe it's important for you to identify in terms of when you're opening this particular professional account or for your law firm or even for your, sometimes you find it's not easy to separate a law firm from the person or the lawyer. Yeah, so I believe the law firm is made up of the lawyer. So the lawyer makes the firm. So it's important you as the lawyer to have a professional account. So even if you have to do social, the social doesn't have to overrun the professionalism. Don't lose that professionalism that is needed. You need to decide your target audience on the social media platform. Who is your target market? What do you intend to do on this particular platform? Are you just doing it for the sake of it? Are you just seeking clout? So what is it that you want to achieve from this particular platform? If it's, let's say, LinkedIn, I'm looking for a job. I'm a young lawyer, I'm looking for a job. Maybe in litigation. Yeah, it will be very strategic for you to start posting matters litigation, recent judgments, discuss them, have your profile done, let your profile show who is this particular person, what is their expertise, because we are long gone from the days of asking advertising for CVs. Yeah, so LinkedIn is another space for even recruitment. There are several recruitment agencies on LinkedIn. They can engage you from just looking at your account. Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, also establish content you not only want to promote, but want to be known for and associated with. This is identifying an area that you want to be an expert on, or you're an expert in. Identify this specifically zero in on this particular area of law, and let it be known that if it's this matter, if it's constitutional law, be it in matters devolution, this is the person I would go to. Like my friend Peter Wanyama, he's identified a niche in devolution and matters county government. And I'm sure you've all, for Kenyan lawyers, we've seen his post on Facebook. And if there was any consultation that I would need in matters devolution, Peter Wanyama would be the go-to guy. So you can also identify an area of law, be it tax law, be it any area that interests you, and you feel that this is an area that you would be comfortable advising on, then identify that area. It will be very wrong that I'm trying to create a space or an expertise, or just to portray myself as an expert in matters land law. Then one random day, I just start posting about family law. Yeah, there are some clients that will ask, I'm sure you've heard that, do you practice this particular area of law? Do you practice this particular version of the law? So sometimes it's important to find an area that can be, that you can easily advise even from the comfort of your home. So what are the contents that you may have to create? We have blog posts, we have informative videos that you can also do maybe on TikTok, like what Muigai has been doing. You can have active engagements on relevant topics. This is on any of the platforms. You can be a moderator in conferences, webinars, yeah, in these areas. You can have news updates and articles. And some of these news updates, as I mentioned, send them to your clients via email, or otherwise even WhatsApp, send it to them. Yeah, you can have podcasts, reposting about articles and events of your farm. If your farm has done any event, be it team building, you can post it on LinkedIn. Like recently we celebrated, on our farm celebrated 50 years. We invited our clients and also posted it on our LinkedIn page, our Instagram page, our Facebook page. So this is also, if there are any events, you can also post them there. Public participation in matters of public interest. You can also engage in such matters. If there's a law that is of importance and of public interest, have a discussion on this particular area, and you never know who may land on this particular post, and they might even instruct you if there's a suit to challenge the particular law. Yeah. The last one is legal jokes and memes. These are also good. Sometimes it's good to engage your viewers or your friends with some legal jokes, but of relevance. Don't lose it with these posts, but they're equally good. Recently, I saw one where, I don't know if you describe it, you'll get the joke, but I'll try. It was a group of 3 crows. Yeah. So I'm sure you know, in English, a group of crows is called a murder. Yeah. So somebody posted, and is a criminal lawyer. Yeah, is a practitioner of, let me say, a practitioner of criminal law. He posted with the 3 birds and stated an attempted murder. Yeah, I hope you get the joke. I'll proceed. The other one is social media for advocates. What are the opportunities that exist? We'll have, you have, as I said, new clients. Yeah, from your post, you can get a new client. I'll mention this. In the periods of 2013, when I was just a young lawyer, I used to post a lot on my Twitter account on matters, the history of Kenya, marrying it with the law. And that's how I landed my client, because I was just new on Twitter. I just joined Twitter in 2012. But in 2013, I landed a client who put me on retainer. Yeah, who put me on retainer, who used to pay me every year. And I'm sure he must have seen my posts and made the informed decision to engage me, and ever since he's been a good client. You also have an opportunity to promote your services, especially on your websites. What are your expertise? What do you do? Yeah, how can you assist members of the society? So this is a good way to do this. Of course, recognizable branding. Yeah, you can market yourself and be a recognizable brand in that particular field, and the opportunities are there. Yeah, and still on this particular issue of recognizable brand, there exists, if the branding is really good, especially on LinkedIn, you have an opportunity, or rather there is the aspect of where some of these global directories may reach out, yeah, and just ask you perhaps to join them, or see if you can be part of their profile to have a more global reach in terms of an international outlook for your law firm. Recently, our law firm was reached by an organization, an international one, through LinkedIn, just asking us if we are willing to partner with them for purposes of reaching out a more wider range of clients. So LinkedIn is a very important platform. Please concentrate on that particular for your professional advancement. We also have leadership. It's so easy for you to create leadership in terms of thought leadership, because lawyers, I believe, are thought leaders. So from your post, you can be seen as the guru and as the leader who can easily discuss a particular topic for purposes of educating or enlightening the society. There's also the aspect of monetization. You can easily make money from social media. As you've seen, content creation is now a money generator. From TikTok, you never know. There might be someone who has a cause, who wants the same to be advanced through social media, and you being a lawyer, they might pay you for you to do this on social media. I've had scenarios where I won't state the facts because the facts may be known out there, but I've heard of organizations paying for someone just to have a discussion online because the lawyer is also an expert in that particular area of law. The challenges that exist and what are the recommendations? For challenges, one is drawing the line on educating the society. Drawing the line on educating the society or offering free legal advice. Yeah, I've had scenarios where the part of educating and then it's seen as you offering free legal advice, which should not be the case. Even as we do these posts, we need to know what to say and what not to say. I believe there's a way you can advise. Then at the end of your post, just find a way of saying, especially if it's a blog post, for more information, kindly reach out to, then you give your address. Yeah, because you see, lawyers, we don't sell goods, we sell advice. So you don't want to give everything for free. Yeah. So the other one is risk of infringement to intellectual property. Of course, this is self-explanatory. And the other one is the constraints in the advocates marketing, as you've seen, in terms of the rules. Our rules, of course, there is need, and that is one of the recommendations, there is need for amendment for them to conform with the times, because you'll find our rules say that one should not have a picture of themselves on their websites. I've not seen any website that does not have a picture of the lawyer. So I believe there is need to amend the particular rules so that they can be as progressive as needed and in conformity with the Omwanza case law. There's also a recommendation in terms of maintaining professionalism. Yeah, as much as we do this, please, let's not lose it as lawyers, because at the end of the day, we are still professionals and we exist in this particular noble profession. Yeah, be careful on the issue of endorsements. Yeah, being careful on the issue of endorsements. Yeah. So the fact that you cannot directly advertise does not mean you cannot share knowledge and root for important causes through social media platforms. And with that, Brenda, I want to turn it over to you. We can engage further if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Mr. Ramadan. It was quite insightful. So maybe we can start off our discussion. Benjamin, maybe I can ask you, how and when and why should you have an online presence as a young lawyer? And then we can have Mr. Augustine, then Mr. Ramadan can add on something if there's any need to.
Thank you, Brenda, for the question. I assume mostly I'm being asked this because I am a young lawyer. So maybe we can begin on the how should you have an online presence as a young lawyer. So as we've discussed during this webinar, the how should really be tailored to the kind of audience you want to be targeting. For example, if you're a young lawyer and you're basically into litigation, this means that you have to be aware that most of your online engagements with other people will be pegged on social communities that have a lot of discussions around litigious matters, avenues where judgments are shared, avenues where people discuss cases and all of that. So you'll find avenues such as LinkedIn to be very helpful because there's a lot of information that is stored in those social sites. So when you can engage with people and get to reinvent and develop yourself, that should be a fast tale of how to develop an online presence as a lawyer. Because basically you'll find that when you enter such a community with like-minded professionals and you're able to share information and you're able to also dish out information, because social media is a give and take, you find that you're able to benefit so much more from your experience as a lawyer, especially a young lawyer. Two, the content also matters. So when it comes to the how, you should bear in mind that as a young lawyer, and especially if you're transitioning into self-practice or part employment, you should realize that you will probably not have enough time to create content, especially for social media. So when it comes to the how, you should consider getting someone who understands what you do, or someone who you can give briefs on what to put out to be managing your social media. So I admit that it can be expensive in the short run, but in terms of consistencies, most of the time you will be in court, you'll be drafting, you'll be meeting clients, so there will not necessarily be a lot of time for social media. So you could consider having someone do it for you. You could give the content and they could develop it for you and put it in your LinkedIn, put it in your Facebook, put it in your Twitter, so that there is a consistent flow. Now, for the when, my answer is really simple. I believe that we're in a technological age, we're in a social media age where mainstream media is beginning to die down and a lot of media we consume comes from social media. So as for the when, I'd say as early as possible, you just need to be strategic about it. Finally, on the why. As a young lawyer, I believe there's a big disparity between the old established lawyers and the young lawyers coming through. And one of the elements that set those two apart is trust, such that old lawyers have been able to develop a niche and develop trust with clients who refer them with matters they've done successfully. So clients easily trust older lawyers, and this should not be a deterrence really to young lawyers, because then the why will now inform how you're to build this trust, especially with the community at large. Because once you begin to set yourself out there, you begin to find that you engage more with people. People get to see the contents of your brain. People get to see the result of your short-term work. If you've managed to handle a criminal brief and you've gotten your client acquitted and you post it on social media, not the case itself, but something short and precise in the lessons that you've taken, it goes a long way to build your trust in that community of criminal law. If you've done a matter successfully and you've noticed a gap somewhere and you address it in your social media, then it begins to set you apart from other lawyers who maybe do not utilize social media as much. So as to the why, I will just say that it begins to settle that trust gap that usually exists between unknown lawyers and lawyers who've already set up their practice and established a niche area. So that would be my answer to question one.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ben. Mr. Augustine, maybe you have something you want to add?
Yes, definitely. I think I'm in agreement with the previous speakers, Abubakar and Benjamin. But in the line of responding to the question that you've raised, I think I would like to start with the why. Why do we need to have advocates onboarded on social media? And I think it's really, for me, a question of appreciating and understanding the nature of our current legal services industry, and also appreciating the kind of role or impact that one may want to have within that space. So for any lawyer joining the industry, I think everyone needs to have a personal reflection to, first of all, challenge themselves and ask the question, what do I want to be? And where do I want to position myself within this wide, either local, regional, or Africa-based, or even international practice of legal business? And once you have the answer to that, then I think you will begin to appreciate the need for you to really position yourself. Positioning yourself within particular practice areas, positioning yourself within the country's legal services industry, and generally positioning yourself as the kind of lawyer that you want to be in the next 10 to 15 to 50 years. Now, anyone who would like to really make an impact and to become a lawyer who is recognizable within the legal services industry needs to appreciate the nature and the dynamics around our society. I think it's Benjamin who has now mentioned of the transition from the old, what you generally call the brick and mortar world, where you had traditional ways of doing things. The world is moving at a fast pace, and the world is changing beyond what we thought it was before. And there is need for one to really position themselves in a way and position that would enhance their visibility, enhance their reputation. I think it's Ramadan was talking of being a thought leader. Enhance your reputation, enhance your value proposition to the market. And where we stand now, I think it will be foolhardy for anyone to imagine that they can afford the luxury of being of basically flying below the radar, of not being known in the market, of not, positioning yourself within any kind of services, practice area or sector or industry, and to imagine that clients will look out for you. Definitely, people have different backgrounds, and there are those who might have the privilege of having maybe relationships that might further, or improve their chances of getting, client leads or client referrals or client work. But for the typical lawyer who is joining the legal services industry without any recognition, without any name, without any godfather, without any law firm, to really give them that kind of a foundation or backbone. I think it's important, as Benjamin and Ramadan have spoken, to really to position yourself, and there's only one way of positioning yourself within the spaces where people communicate, interact, and really engage in. And of course, Ramadan gave the various platforms that are available for people to network, to engage, to basically post, and to gain recognition. And I think that's really the why any lawyer should really find it necessary and important to engage in social media. On the when, I think Benjamin has rightly stated, the best time was yesterday. The next best time is today. We have, as human beings, we don't have the luxury of living, hundreds of decades. We were only here for a limited time. And again, depending on when you joined the industry, it's important that you really hit the road running. There is no time for you to simply, fold your hands, wait for people to recognize you, for clients to refer work to you if they don't know who you are, what you do, what your kind of character is, what you're capable of doing, and what value you bring to them. So these are things that you need to engage in, and this is an exercise of value propositioning yourself to the market that you need to engage as soon as you can. Remember, you are competing not just with your local people in our respective countries, but you're competing with colleagues across East Africa, across Africa, with international law firms, who each and every other passing day are striving tooth and nail to find ways of reaching the very clients that we continue to dream about, and hoping that they can onboard us. And these people are very aggressive. They come from jurisdictions where, as Ramadan cited, the example in Kenya, some jurisdictions have an open-ended, permission allowing people to do whatever by way of any kind of advertising. So if you're the kind of lawyer based in Kampala or based in Nairobi or Kisumu or wherever we might be, you cannot afford the luxury of simply playing small under the illusion that you're being, noble. The market needs to know you, and the market needs to know you today when you still have the energy, when you still have the momentum, when you still have, that kind of passion to engage in the practice of law, and not wait for the next 30 years, 40 years, when your age mates, the decision makers, and people who could actually appeal to you or that you could appeal to have since moved on to other people. Remember, a client that doesn't recognize you will recognize another lawyer who has positioned themselves for that kind of recognition. So the when is a matter that really needs no debate or argument. And it's a matter that needs to be embarked on with a lot of energy, passion, conviction, and really commitment. And it needs to be done as soon as possible. The how, I believe Ramadan has already given, a pretty, clear guidance on the how. But if I may, on what the lawyers need to do. First of all, it's important for the lawyers to recognize that social media or engagement in social media, it's really not, it's not a race, it's not a sprint. Social media use, social media engagement is not a matter that we think, is going to yield positive results in a matter of weeks or months or years. Social media engagements and commitments and that consistency is the way marathoners would basically categorize. It should be run or utilized as if it is a marathon and not necessarily a sprint. So if you have that kind of recognition, and this is more particularly so for new lawyers who have just joined the industry or new firms that might have no brand recognition in the market, regardless of how good you might be as individuals, you need to process it as a marathon. So that's consistently, the cycle of onboarding clients through that kind of consistent engagement in social media can yield results over time. Now that is one. And then secondly, just to add to what Ramadan talked about, and I think even Benjamin mentioned about it. And just to reiterate, yes, anyone deciding to enter into that social media space, you need to define your target audience. And defining your target audience will help you to define the contents of your posts so as to nurture and really, and grow your mileage within that space. Secondly, again, my colleagues have also mentioned the need to really select your platforms, taking into account the kind of audience or your target audience is. There are certain people that you might be targeting who, as Ramadan spoke, might be within that, that platform of LinkedIn. But if you want another type of, category of clients, you might find them on TikTok, or there are those who might be on Facebook. So it's important that you really define your target audience, and having a clear target audience will also help you to now identify the most appropriate platform to reach your intended audience. After ascertaining the intended platform, you also need to look into the best, or to research about the selected platform best practices. Now, for all of us, I believe there's none of us who is not at least on any of the social media platforms. But for those who might have had the privilege of looking at the various social media platforms, you'll recognize that the character and the nature of the posts that TikTok has, which basically focuses on short videos, funny videos, is not the same kind of material that you would need to upload on Instagram, which is really heavy on videos and on the visuals. LinkedIn, on the other hand, is the kind of material that you also post on LinkedIn. There is the imagination and semblance of an intellectual community, people who want, captions and lengthy, well thought out write-ups. And so you really need to research on the best platform, best practices, so that you can really maximize the kind of reach and the kind of impression that you will garner once you have entered there. And the other how is to really create content that provides real value to the target audience. And I think Ramadan spoke about this. And so I'll not really belabor, talking of the same things. But generally speaking, relevant content gives people a reason to come back for more. And these, coming back for more is by now people clicking, either subscribing to your platforms or following you. And that's how you generate that organic traffic. And that's how you generate that repeat kind of impression And those repeat impressions will bring about the real value that you will benefit from this kind of continuous engagement. And that's when people will know that you are someone who creates value, and they'll want to know a little bit more about you and possibly lead to client leads. Ramadan spoke about professionalism. And I think this is something that we really need to reemphasize. For all of us across the various countries, I think we all agree about one thing, that historically, the practice of law has been one that is, that's really, shrouded by all these notions of being a noble profession, and how we have, rules that enjoin us to engage in professional behavior. But professionalism in this case is really all about the image that you post, the image that you give about yourself. Now, just imagine, for argument's sake, that some person has a website and they have the most professionally taken photos, and the quality of the layout of the website is really top notch. And then you have someone else who has a website with photos taken of really the most ridiculous and the most unappealing images using our phone cameras. There will definitely be a different perception that will be made of the two law firms. So in whatever you do within the social media platforms, I think it serves you well to have quality, professionalism, and really portraying a polished law firm kind of culture. And that is by using good quality videos as far as possible, having professionals create for you graphics and, taking photos, and the creation of other visuals that will really leave a mark of excellence, of professionalism, and will create some level of impression and desire in the minds of those who really engage with you. And then I think in addition to that, we need, and I think Ramadan spoke about this again, it really, the need to ensure that whenever we are giving our opinions, we are very deliberate in ensuring that you are not purporting to put binding opinions on factual matters, but rather to really stay above by giving insights, qualified kind of materials and educational kind of commentaries or publications, which cannot be used as cannot be misinterpreted by the recipients as you purporting to give binding legal opinions. And generally, that's how I would approach the how question. Brenda.
Thank you so much, Mr. Augustine. Maybe we can move to social media. How do you balance having a professional account and a personal account? Should they be in one account? Maybe Ben, you can take it up, because I fortunately, we are friends on Facebook, and I see you use mostly you use the same account for your personal and your professional business. Maybe you can tell us more about that. Has it hindered any opportunities that you've had on social media? Yes.
Okay, thank you, Brenda, for that. Again, when it comes to branding, I usually feel like branding is setting yourself apart from other people. It's having a distinct appearance on social media, having a distinct voice on social media, and having a personality which can be distinguished from the rest. For me, I usually draw my inspiration from Chief Justice Emeritus Willy Mutunga. If you follow the retired Chief Justice online, you'll find that he manages to be very relatable to the people. And from what I've observed from so many young lawyers is that when they set up their social media, they strive to be very, one, verbose, and two, complicated, and three, very how do I put it? They're very complicated, if that's a term I can be allowed to use. And when it comes to social media, I believe everyone should be alive to the fact that you're dealing with your everyday Kenyan, you're dealing with your everyday Ugandan, you're dealing with your everyday citizen out there. So it's important to be relatable in terms of the content you put out there, in terms of your engagement with people, so that someone can be very comfortable coming to you with a legal issue, not even necessarily bringing you business, but just sharing information, just having that notion that there are no vanguards of legal information. It doesn't have to be whenever Njero posts something, it is either a judgment or a very complicated legal opinion. Sometimes it can just be engagements with my friends on social media on a particular issue. And over time, it just develops a kind of trust scenario where they can come to you with questions and you can go to your peers, to members of the public with questions as well, with information as well. And that sort of information sharing can build networks. So for me, part of branding is not necessarily separating yourself from what you do for a living. It is in understanding that you are more than a lawyer, you're a human being, you're a father, you're a friend. So at the end of the day, you have to be all these things at once. So whereas my firm has social media pages, I really would not like to be boxed into that narrative where I have to be a kind of a model professional in terms of the legalese I spew on social media, because for me as a young lawyer, that does not seem relatable. And that is my opinion on maybe branding and why it is that for me, there is no great distinction between Njero the advocate and Njero the average human being on the street every day.
Thank you so much for that, Ben. Mr. Augustine, back to you. So I'd like to ask you, how do you market yourself online in line with the advertisement rules of the profession?
Okay. I don't know where now to start with that, because I don't know whether I should first go a little bit about the Ugandan regulatory landscape and then maybe come back to the question.
No problem, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. Ramadan gave a good background to the regulatory landscape, and unfortunately, it's one which is not a reflection of the Ugandan archaic kind of position right now. So to that, I think our friends and colleagues in Kenya are in a much, much better position as far as the regulatory limitations or restrictions are concerned. Like most common law practicing countries, and I'm talking in generic terms, in terms of really unquantifiable numbers, Uganda has restrictions around the notions of branding, advertisement, marketing, as you've called it. We have the Advocates Act, which I think it's an act that's a 1976 act, and with regulations that limits the ability and the freedom of advocates to generally engage without any restrictions in things that would generally be deemed to be advertising, branding, and things in that category. So we have the Advocates Professional Conduct Regulations, which the number of interesting provisions, but I would like to focus on two. The first one is Regulation 22, which generally speaking prohibits the touting and advertisement by lawyers. And I think these are provisions that I mirror, I think, before the Kenyan position that Ramadan spoke about. These provisions generally prohibit advocates from touting, and what we call the ambulance chasing. And generally, there is a generic or general provision that's, that also prohibits, advertising. Now, the interesting part is that there is no definition of what advertising means. And so if one was to use a holistic and really a wide sweeping kind of understanding or definition of advertising, you therefore find most, if not all, advocates in Uganda basically being in breach of this kind of a provision. And what is, I think, also important to note, unlike the IBA basically principles, and I think as mirrored in the Kenyan regulations, Uganda does not have specific provisions in any legislation regulating advocates that expressly mentions or talks about social media as a recent phenomenon. And so if you look at it from that generic perspective, if you're looking at websites, you're looking at any platform that has social media or that can be understood to amount to social media, would all be platforms that advocates would be prohibited from engaging in, strictly speaking. But there is, when you look at Regulation 23 of the Advocates Regulations, the Professional Conduct Regulations, there is, I think it's sub-regulation 4, a permissive provision that generally allows advocates to engage in publications of an educational nature. So when you try to expand, the definition of a publication of an educational nature, then there we have some kind of escape route to really engage in either insights or discussion of cases, or making material opinions or case updates of an educational nature. And I think in doing that, it becomes important, I think, for advocates to also be mindful of, one, the current existing general prohibitions, but also be mindful in utilizing that kind of soft spot in the law or weakness in the law, that you don't exceed those kind of enabling provisions, and to now engage in a blatant, and unhinged kind of marketing, so to say. So it's really, it's a tricky position, Brenda, that we find ourselves in, and there is no clear pronouncements by the Uganda Law Council. The Law Council, and unfortunately, it's a matter that would definitely need to be helped by more enabling, more forward-thinking, more really new thinking into the way the practice of law and the restrictions around the legal industry is limited or restricted. Now, going back to the specific question of how do we manage marketing, I believe that was the question, Brenda, right?
Yes, that was the question.
Yeah. Now, mindful of all the limitations that we have in Uganda, it's more of walking on eggshells, ensuring that as you acknowledge the need to really be out there in the marketplace, as you recognize the kind of changing dynamics in the population, the people who are making decisions are no longer the old people who would read newspapers and sit back at home and read, some kind of magazines. And decisions are now made by people who are spending close to 50% of their active working days on social media. And you need to reach out to those people if you're going to remain relevant and to also thrive in the practice of your business. Now, if you recognize that and you're also mindful of the kind of limitations that you have. It now becomes a question of really, being deliberate around the kind of engagement that you engage in, and also being deliberate around the kind of material that you publish on the various platforms. Ramadan gave examples of how you can publish an insight or a case update on your website. But is the website, for example, a platform that is statutorily expressly allowed? And I think, again, that's a question for debates, at least in Uganda. Can you, post, any kind of material expressly touting for business? Maybe there is, you go on social media and there is maybe a dispute on Facebook between, two spouses, and you're directly going to tout for business that, hire me because I am a family lawyer. Or, whenever maybe people have had accidents and then you go on social media and you're touting for business. And I think these are the kind of considerations that the typical lawyer now has to be mindful of as they engage in really that kind of, walking on thin ice, so walking on eggshells. Can you make social media engagements, which can strictly be construed to amount to the publication of educational material? Or are you making material that can be construed to have really exceeded all reasonable limits and can no longer be interpreted or construed to be educational material, and has therefore crossed to that realm of direct and aggressive marketing or, or advertising? And so it's the how is really now a question of prudence. It's a question of understanding best practices, for lawyers, and ensuring that you are not crossing to the red line, which is clearly, without even any kind of gray area, which is clearly prohibited. Social media is not, does not negate or extinguish, the kind of other, professional conduct limitations that we might have. So if you have a limitation, for example, on the law of sub judice, or disclosure of client confidential information, or all these kind of rules that I think as advocates we are bound by in our respective countries, can you continue to post or publish educational material which does not cross to really the red zone of either engaging in a sub judice or defamation, or breach of intellectual property rights of other people, or disclosure of client confidential information, or basically an engagement in direct touting? And I think that's really having an understanding of the existing and still applicable professional conduct restrictions that we have, but also now acknowledging that there is a way around those restrictions by engaging in educational material and ensuring that you really remain balanced and you're not committing something that, regardless of the platform, can be seen by any single person, a man in the street and an observer in the street, as having engaged in touting. And I think that's really the balancing act that anyone interested in engaging in social media, I don't want to call it marketing, Brenda, but rather, social media engagement for educational purposes, needs to be aware of.
Thank you so much, Mr. Augustine. Mr. Ramadan had shared his personal success stories on the opportunities he's found online. Maybe we can go ahead. You can go ahead, Ben, and share with us your success story. Then Mr. Augustine can also share with us his success stories.
So personally, for me, my success stories have really circled around social media, because even when it comes to some of the cases that we've handled at the firm, they basically started on engagements on social media. For instance, last year we did a matter on where we sued HELB for or the penalties exceeding the principal amounts that the borrowers had borrowed. And this was a public interest matter, which was successful last year. But how this matter got to be was social media, because it was based on engagements with people, just seeing how the institution is really exploiting people. And once you engage with people, with members of the public, you engage with lawyers, you see whether there's an angle that can be done to curate this vice, then you can come up with something that will really put you out there in terms of the kind of practice that you're involved with. So in that regard, for me personally, success shouldn't be the clients that I've found from my engagements with them on social media, but for me it counts as those engagements that have really opened my mind in terms of the content that I give out and what I receive from people, colleagues, seniors, members of the public on that very social media, which can really propel a young advocate or a young lawyer, especially in practice, because you get to see what other people are doing. If I logged onto social media a few weeks ago and I saw someone who had halted the appointment of the chief administrative secretaries, the ones that were recently appointed. And some of those things, if you were to wait for Kenya law, you'd wait a year or even longer. But if you're on social media, a lawyer will just come and post the judgment. It's been delivered today, you get it tomorrow. And you're able to grow faster that way in terms of social media. So for me, most of my success stories are based on that. It is that I can, in real time, maybe mostly on Twitter, you get to see, for instance, there was this musician who was awarded 1 million for having his copyright infringed upon. That's famously known as Nonini. And it was on Twitter. You can't find the judgment on Kenya law, but it was on Twitter. And it really helped, especially those lawyers who are interested in intellectual property law, because now they see that it can be done and they can get to see how it has actually been done. So personally, for me, that would be my biggest win in terms of social media use.
Thank you for sharing with us, Ben. Mr. Augustine?
Thank you. I think it was Ramadan who had mentioned the issue of being a thought leader. All of us, and I'm speaking generally, I believe enter this profession with the best of intentions, and we enter the profession with the desire to really make a difference in either our personal life, our communities, or generally have still those lofty ideals of being a recognizable brand within the service, within the legal services sector. Now, one of the things, really, one of the quick wins that social media usage and consistent engagement helps, and has really, and as you say, that as a personal thing, it's really to enable me to become a thought leader in a number of practice areas. And thought leadership is really all about being highly regarded within a practice area that you may purpose or you might deliberately set out to become an expert or a specialist in. Social media has definitely expanded the reach of my recognition in those practice areas. And to that extent, it's one of the wins that I have enjoyed thus far. And again, it is really, I believe, when you consistently apply yourself to showcasing your knowledge, your expertise, and your reputation within a particular sector or practice area, This is really one of the easy, what you call the low-lying fruits that anyone can enjoy, as long as you really commit yourself to consistently and over time engage in those kind of thought leadership. And thought leadership is really being, you know, a leader within that sector or within that area. The second is regarding the kind of wins within the existing clients. Many times we focus more on how to get new clients, but seldom do we take time to see how we can, you know, get a wider share of the existing clients, you know, financial budget for legal spend. Now, it is a common trait or a common occurrence in within our legal practices sector that you might be, for example, representing a bank, a commercial bank, and all you are known for, they might say Brenda is an employment lawyer. And little do they know that Brenda is maybe, say, a tax lawyer. Now, tomorrow, if they don't recognize Brenda as a tax lawyer, if they have a tax instruction, they will not be thinking Brenda, they will not be thinking of Brenda, the employment lawyer, but they will be looking for another lawyer either on the panel or another lawyer outside the panel to give that tax instruction. So one of the things that engagement in social media has helped, and as I think Ramadan had pointed out at the beginning, whenever you have these insights, either legal developments, either in legislation or case law, please share with your existing clients first and foremost. They are your biggest asset. And why do I say that? These are people who already know you. These are people who already trust you. These are people who can easily be sold onto other practice areas. All they need to know is whether they can trust you in another practice area in as much as they already trust you in an existing practice area where they have already been instructing you on and where you have delivered pretty well. So one of the other win that I have witnessed here is the ability for the clients to actually now expand the scope of the instructions that they can actually give you from what they used to know you as being a lawyer. If they knew you for basically, you know, either banking matters, recoveries, or, you know, making syndicated financing loans, and they get to know that you're also an employment lawyer and you have shared articles with them on developments in employment law, I have witnessed how that has really led to more instructions in different practice areas where you demonstrate knowledge and expertise on. So that's another win for me. The third win is, I think, as Benjamin stated, is really the ability to create new leads. The beauty about our legal profession is that you simply don't know where your clients are going to come from. And you don't know the kind of legal issues people have out there in the market. So when you reach outside your known clients, you know, your known client networks, and you deliberately go out there to the world, you don't know who is going to read your Twitter post. You don't know who is going to read your LinkedIn post. You don't know who is going to read your website profile or your Facebook post. But each of these readers are potential new leads. And many a time you'll realize once you engage in this kind of engagements that new clients that you least expected, including clients that you'd not even have gone through had you gone there without any kind of, knocking the door, will simply come and, reach out to you. And, in most cases, they turn around and they get onboarded. There is something that clients love, and that is something about, people that they can trust. And one of the ways to win people's trust is by positioning yourself as an expert in an area. It's not about whether they know you at a personal level, your personal ethics or things of that kind. Clients just want to work with someone that they imagine or that they believe is best placed to resolve their problems. And you can only demonstrate that with new clients when you position yourself as a thought leader, as an expert in an area, and that's how you bring on board new clients. And I think Ramadan talked about, how a post gave him a retainer with a client that he still has today. And that's a common story when you engage with a number of lawyers who have been deliberate and have been consistent in their social media usage. And that's something that I personally share. And I think also, Benjamin wrapped up his discussion on how social media has also been a learning platform. As they say, you only stop learning when you die. And I think, social media has been a platform that has provided this unlimited kind of knowledge base from which we constantly benefit from, either in relation to developments in legislation, developments in case law, and all these kind of insights that people keep on having. Even just on discussions on WhatsApp groups. It's one of the best places where people freely share knowledge without any restriction, and there is no selfishness around some of these discussions. And so for me, the ability to learn and to really grow in my knowledge is by far the best use of social media. Over to you, Brenda.
Thank you so much, Mr. Augustine. Maybe you can move to the challenges that comes with seeking opportunities for young lawyers online. Ben Paul.
Thank you once again. I believe, especially for young lawyers, one of the greatest challenges of social media is exactly what Senior Ramathan brought out when he was explaining the lines that lawyers would cross when it comes to social media and professionalism. Because especially for most young lawyers, and from what I've observed even for myself, is that it is increasingly difficult to establish professionalism to a certain extent on social media. Because at the end of the day, social media is social media and you're a human being. And at some point when it can get heated in terms of debates, in terms of discussions, and you can find yourself maybe having ad hominem arguments, maybe having a frame of mind where you don't really accept where you're wrong, because that's social media for you. So I feel for me, the greatest challenge when it comes to social media, and specifically referring to young advocates, is the issue of professionalism. Because at the end of the day, you can't be the lawyer who is seen to blatantly advertise, this is what I do, these are my charges, this is what I'm doing currently, this is the client that I'm helping out in this way. So for most of these things on social media, there has to be a very measured and strategic approach that you don't end up being unprofessional. Because unprofessionalism can be even in the tiniest of details. And professionalism can be in the way that you address a potential client. It can be in the way that you address a potential colleague. It can be in the way that you address judicial officers, because they are also on social media. So at the end of the day, people are usually known, even in court. A judicial officer can recognize you from social media, and you cannot let that now be the basis upon which you become over-familiar with either judicial officer, a colleague, especially senior colleagues. So it should always be on a level of respect and professionalism. And other than that, I believe there is also the challenge of explaining how a lot of things work to members of the public. Because someone might wonder why you don't put out your charges on your social media like other business people do. It would be difficult to start addressing issues of advocates remuneration order on online, because that gives us a base rate, that gives us the minimum charges payable. But then if you begin to address this situation, the members of the public begin to feel that this is the rightful legal fees to pay an advocate. So if another advocate charges higher, or if you end up charging higher, it could seem as though you're not being very professional. And this was your own doing because you brought information which was not necessarily relevant or even helpful to this client. And at the end of the day, you'll find yourself getting into so many issues with clients, disciplinary tribunals, and all of this, basically because of how you package the information that you put out there. So I just believe that the challenges that I face and like-minded colleagues face is just an issue around professionalism, how to deal with clients, how to migrate them from being social media followers or friends to actually being clients, because there's a level of professionalism that needs to be maintained throughout. So basically that would be it. I would be keen to hear from my fellow panelists, Mr. Ramathan and Mr. Augustine, on how exactly they deal with this, because at the end of the day, it's a learning process, and we are all open to sharing ideas as to how we can move forward as a profession.
Maybe you can start off with Mr. Ramathan.
Thank you, Benjamin, for bringing that aspect of how do you separate your social from your professional aspect, especially on Facebook, where you find sometimes you have to engage with other opinion, let me say opinion leaders or lawyers or non-lawyers. Yeah, it's a very thin line. And for me personally, yeah, I take it that on social media, you do not know who you're engaging with. You do not know their state of mind. You do not know where they are or who they are sometimes, yeah? So your professional bit is something you can control. You cannot control what another person will post, but you can control what you will post. Therefore, gain control of that, know what you're posting, be professional at all times. And in fact, you mentioned, Mr. Benjamin, the aspect of ad hominem attacks. And you find, you lose the professionalism. It can be lost so easily by one post or one comment on that particular, and you might find it's a very important post. Yeah, it's lost by one comment that everyone now comes on that particular comment to start engaging you on that particular comment. It is for example, if it is my post, I have the control on that particular post. I can decide I can hide that particular comment or delete that particular comment if I do not agree with it, or if I do not want to engage in it. It is my post, yeah? And I want to keep it professional as possible. Let us engage on thoughts, because you find sometimes people are just online trolls, and I'm hoping not lawyers, yeah? And it will be so unfortunate if it is you who is the online troll, you as the lawyer. So for me, I try as much as possible just to engage professionally. Even if somebody may ask me as much as they want to irritate me, I try as much as possible not to show my irritation on my response. And if I have to respond, because you do not have to respond. Yeah, they say that you do not have to respond to every dog on your way to the river. You do not have to respond or to give a comment to every dog that barks at you, right? So that's how personally I handle my social media. And on that particular issue, I think it's also very important to read or to understand the social media platform that you're on. You mentioned the issue of sometimes, of course, everyone has that social aspect or family side of them. But it will be very wrong for me to post that I attended a wedding on my LinkedIn. You get, so you can do that maybe on Instagram or Facebook. So I think you need to read, let me say, read the room. Yeah. Read the room, read the platform that you're on, understand how it works. If it's LinkedIn, LinkedIn does not work like Facebook. It does not. It may be social media, yes, but the workings, the postings are very different. Read on how each and every particular social media platform works and what you can post in these particular spaces. I think that's that for me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramadan. Mr. Augustine?
I think the two colleagues have already, I think they've done justice to this issue, but allow me to just give a few additional comments. It's indeed true that there are no clear-cut rules around, how to balance that personal from the professional. And it is something that I think it's work in progress, something that I think each and every one really needs to be intentional around, and also always ask, how does a certain post on a certain platform, how does it affect, would my client ABC, that hypothetical client, would they be proud of me, or would they take issue with my kind of personal behavior? Now, it's indeed true that we enjoy personal lives, but one thing that we need to understand around the professional services industry generally, and the legal services industry, in particular, is that perception is indeed your reality. So when your clients perceive you to be an unprofessional, untrustworthy, unhinged individual who engages in, really the most abhorrent or the most pathetic private social life, or better still, you're the kind of person who is abusing people on social media as your default nature, or tomorrow you're the one who is disclosing client information on social media, that will become your reality. And your reality will be that people may hesitate or may be less inclined to deal with you, because it portrays what you showcase on social media, says a lot about your values, your ethics, and your person, generally speaking. So as we go around these murky waters trying to understand social media, and every other time a new social media platform is thrust upon us, yet we have not even understood the rules for the existing platforms, we need to always, reset ourselves to the very foundational rules of the typical human interactions. How will my friend perceive me? How would my churchmate perceive me if I did ABC? Yes, Ramadan has talked about posting a family photo or wedding event on LinkedIn. But if you posted yourself attending a wedding, definitely that will be acceptable. There is no client who is going to take issue with you if you posted that on Facebook. It will be entirely different if you post a picture of you maybe naked in dancing on top of a table. That's an entirely different discussion. So we just need to be informed and to be guided by certain basic rules of behavior. And knowing that the way we behave ultimately informs the way people perceive us, and the perception of us informs our reality. And sometimes if people form a bad impression of us, we'll definitely find challenges, possibly even just retaining clients, because who would want to associate themselves with a very debased, morally loose, and a very uncontrollable person in society. The other danger, I think, has already been hinted on, is that we must at all times be mindful of the double-edged nature of the social media platform, or the social media platforms. Now, as we all know, it's social media is generally an avenue to reach out to clients and potential clients. And in relationship to the issue that we're discussing, the danger. Social media is no longer a platform that, generally speaking, is only a mouthpiece for the lawyers or for the people posting. Social media has also become that instant public forum or public, the public court where clients also interact directly with us. And in most cases, as Ramadan, I think, and Benjamin have stated, sometimes it creates a backlash. And most of the time, I think there is no one who has engaged in social media and has not had an instance where there's been some kind of negative feedback or negative review, either from a person who was never your business client, or from someone who hates you for whatever reason, to whatever issue. And I think it's something that always remains a risk, that the risk of reputational damage is very significantly high. And Ramadan, I think, has just given an example of how you can try to minimize or mitigate the damage that can result if and when any kind of negative feedback might be thrown at you. But that is one of the risks, that social media is an avenue for people to talk and give the worst feedback and reviews of your business, of your person, of your conduct, and of anything, including anything not related to your personal business, or even not related to the post that you shared. The last risk that I've also seen, and I think this is really all about the fear element. The risk that you'll go on social media and then you start holding back on the quantity or the quality of your content. There's some kind of there's a debate around how far should lawyers share educational material, insights, and opinions around legal issues. And one of the things that has been, of course, there's one school that says that, why should you share? You are giving away value for free. But there's another school of thought that says you're not giving things for free. You are giving what they call value additional services to clients. And some of these clients, even when you give them this information, they will not have the extent and the depth of your legal knowledge, that will therefore make them to hold back that instructions from you. So one of the risks around the usage of social media is that kind of fear, or that kind of holding back by us lawyers to limit the kind of material that you share with clients or with the public. And I think I would like to encourage people to really debunk that myth by having this kind of understanding that the more you give is the more you will get or receive from clients, because it enhances your reputation, it enhances your respect within those social circles that you might be sharing this information with. But again, as I wrap up on this particular issue, I think common sense and prudence should guide every lawyer around the usage of social media platforms. There are no standard or hard and fast rules, but there are common rules of decency, of reason, and basically also controlling, the narrative and controlling your platform and posts. Over to you, Brenda.
Thank you so much, Mr. Augustine. We now want to move to the plenary session. You can see there's a hand that is raised. Let me just give you access. Riziki Emukule, can you hear me? Maybe you can unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, you can. It's okay, go on.
Sorry, I'm in a matatu. I'm traveling somewhere, so it's a bit noisy. Now, my question would be this. So let me start by introducing myself. My name is Riziki Mkule from Kenya. I'm a council member in the Law Society of Kenya, and I'm the coast representative. Now, when the introduction was being made, I was very keen and I loved it. And I think the speaker should be Ramadan, my good friend, talked of the case of Okenyo Omwansa, which we are all familiar with. But what I'm wondering is, you see, the world is changing. We're in 2023. All other disciplines are advertising. As lawyers, I don't know. You're saying that the things that are open for us to advertise are to be LinkedIn, or to be YouTube and Nini. What about TV? What is our place as lawyers in the TV and even advertising and buying advertisement? The way a soap company or an unga company can buy an advert and advertise their farm. Also, billboards. If I wanted to take a billboard between, I live in Malindi myself, coast. Nikachukua billboard ambayo iko between Mombasa and Malindi. A very central billboard. Is that allowed? So basically, or rather simply, my question is, in as much as tumefunguliwa or we've been accepted to advertise, na sisi lawyers, biashara yetu must be seen, must be heard. How is it that bado tuko compress kwa mambo madogo kama LinkedIn or YouTube? Why is it that we can't advertise on TV, on main TV, and billboards? If I can get an answer to that, maybe it's open. I mean, if I didn't know, I'll be happy to hear right now that it is open. Or rather, what stops us from advertising, yani bele, you know? Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Riziki. Mr. Ramadan, would you like to answer that?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Riziki, and travel safe. Yeah, that's a very, very important question in terms of the issue of advertising and marrying it with the case of George Omwansa. I begin by quoting the case of Bates versus the state of Arizona, where the former Chief Justice of the United States, Mr. Berger, was of the view when, for them, they allow, you understand that America allows advertising on the billboards and otherwise, but in that particular case, in the state of Arizona, it was not allowed. And one of the arguments of the judge opined was that the law is a noble profession. And being a noble profession, we will not allow lawyers to advertise as the same as other commodities that sell, I was talking about mustard, vehicles, and laxatives. So there's no way lawyers can be selling their services like other commodities or goods. And if you understand the history of law, for a very long time, when the noble profession began, lawyers were not charging their fees. Yeah, and that's why you find there's this conservative issue of lawyers and fees. And will you want to advertise and say that I charge this much for a sale agreement? And that's why you find our gowns. I don't know about for other jurisdictions, but you find the Kenyan gown has a pocket right at the back. Yeah, if you have the original gown, has a pocket right at the back. And this pocket, its purposes was, now as the solicitor or the barrister walks around the street, then the society will be putting coins into his pocket. That is how lawyers used to earn their fees. There was no charging of fees when the profession began. So you'll find from this conservative nature of the profession, that's why you find you cannot advertise in, or rather on TVs and radio. And there's also been the argument when the 2012 case was just rendered. Now there was a clamor to allow lawyers to advertise on TV. And arguments were made. I remember in one of the platforms, I'm not sure if it was the AGM or just the public participation before the rules were enacted, that there will be unfair competition. You can imagine, I'm just an example, I'm a 2-year lawyer in practice. I've started my own firm. Then there's this other firm that has the muscle, financial muscle, and can advertise. It has billboards all over the streets. And me as a budding lawyer, there is no way I can afford putting up a billboard. That means I'm at an unfair advantage. So the issue of unfair competition is one of the aspects that has rendered this issue of TV advertising not to be possible, and which I want to agree with. I think TV will just change the profession and commercialize it. And I don't think as lawyers, we want to be there just before the primetime news, you're advertising your services. I think we lose it as a profession. That's that for me.
Thank you. There's an anonymous attendee who is asking if he or she had a tendency of posting on their status in nightclubs, and they abruptly change that, and like, can their audience cope with the new habit? Maybe Ben, you can answer that.
Okay, that's a very interesting question. And it poses a serious dilemma because say someone likes to have fun, to party, to go to nightclubs, and this person is a lawyer. So essentially this person is doing nothing wrong. But now we begin to think about what if this person has a different entity or practices as a lawyer. This is somewhat a different phase of life. This is not somewhere where you go to dance, somewhere where you go to read and interpret laws and help your clients out. So I think that for one, separation is ideal because in our little offices or in our little practices, we work with other people who have different personas, who have different reputations to protect. And so is the firm. The firm is not, is usually a distinct entity from yourself. So in as much as you love going out, in as much as you love partying, it would be very important to streamline your life such that when you're talking about the law, you have a space where you as an advocate can begin to set that part of your life apart from this other part of you. And I'd like to give a quick example of the retired CJ. I like to use him a lot when it comes to social media. Chief Justice Emeritus, Dr. Willy Mutunga. You'll find that I'm not saying that he does anything untoward, but there's this life of his that is very pro people, that is Sheng speaking, that at some point there was an issue with his earring wearing in public. And the way he did that was to set out the part of his life that is very personal and very maybe interesting to some people in some quarters, and the part of his life that is about the law. And at the end of the day, he managed to create a balance of professionalism where if you follow Dr. Willy Mutunga today, if you go to his Twitter account, you will probably not find a lot of his content per se, but if you go to his friends, the likes of the famous activist, Boniface, I forget the other name, the activist. Yeah, Boniface Mwangi, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll get to see how he lives his day-to-day, how he interacts with people, how he's interpreting Sheng words. Just there's a different aspect of his, but he's managed to keep it away from this other side of him. So it's a difficult balance, and I do not have a direct answer as to what will work for you and what will not work for you. But the canon rule of thumb is that your personal life should never get in the way of your business.
Thank you for that, Ben. Steve Muthembwa asks, what is posted in social media sometimes is fake and misleading. How can a person set himself or herself as a person who's authentic and what he or she posts reflects truly about himself or herself. Mr. Augustine, maybe you can take that.
Social media is really the wide wild west, and it's really a place for anarchy and a lot of misinformation, a lot of misrepresentation, fake news, as we now hear, because suddenly free speech has been literally democratized and everyone now has a voice. It's therefore incumbent upon individuals to really ensure that as they engage in social media, of course, there are two ways in which you're engaging in social media platforms, either as a recipient of information or as a provider of information. As a recipient of information, most of these platforms have, the provisions, for example, for sharing. And many times we are so trigger happy to simply either share or forward or, retweet or like or things of that kind, without making the effort to even verify or let alone do the most basic of, searches or cross references, or even just the typical verification. And when you do that, there is a certain perception that you will inadvertently, a portray of yourself, someone who is a purveyor of fake news or false news or misleading information. And so the likelihood that people may really hold you in high esteem, let alone even take you seriously, will definitely dwindle. On the other hand, you have your capacity as a lawyer, as someone who is a user of any social media platform. When it comes to misleading information, and again, we're talking about this in the context of us lawyers, it also now, says a lot about our own research abilities, our own professionalism, our own quality of, of verification, and why people should even trust you. So as you go about, sharing, cases, or you go about sharing insights or, legislative updates, I think we all need to go back to the very basics of our profession as lawyers. And I think when you look at our respective applicable rules of professional conduct, I think we're all enjoined to really dispense our services in a manner that is really, that basically is professional, that is accurate, and I think really where you are discharging your duties as a lawyer to your clients. But in this case, you strictly don't have clients. When you're communicating using your social media platforms, you are not communicating as a lawyer-client kind of engagement, but rather engaging with any, with unnamed, unlimited, people, including existing clients and potential clients alike. So as we go about, maneuvering around, the dangers around false, misleading information, I think we always need to be mindful of the need to be diligent in our searches, diligent and professional in our write-ups, in our writings, and in the quality and in the truthfulness of the information that we are posting. Because when you are diligent and you take, the effort to verify, then, not only will you be, informing the public with correct information, but it also goes a long way to really, buttress your status as a trustworthy source of legal educative information. And so it's something that we need to be mindful of in whatever we do I think all of us here have been speaking about professionalism. Professionalism is not just the way we dress in the kind of information, but also just making the effort to be accurate in the kind of information that we share with the public. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you so much. There's someone who's raised their hand, Titus Sioki.
Yes, good
Good
afternoon.
evening.
Yes, I have two questions. One is that is it wrong for an advocate to have ads on promoting his services on YouTube? And the second one is, are we allowed as advocates to have sponsored pages on social media like Facebook, Twitter, where we can post our services there for people to have access to us? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramadan.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Titus, for that question. That is not allowed in terms of advertising, a sponsored advertisement, that is not allowed in terms of for Facebook, paid advertising, that is clearly not allowed under the marketing rules and regulations. Also sponsorship or sponsored pages on Facebook, that is equally not allowed. And with that amounts to professional misconduct, and one may be charged or having to defend themselves before the disciplinary committee, because it creates an unfair advantage amongst your competitors or other lawyers. You find as I stated, you'll find other law firms that can pay that for the rest of their lifetime, yeah, and maybe another law firm that can only pay monthly. So you create an unfair advantage, and that's why you can only engage, perhaps if it's YouTube, through educative forums or conversations amongst your peers or otherwise, just to educate the masses, but not having a YouTube video just advertising your services. That will amount to wrongful advertisement, and you may have issues with that.
Thank you for that. Patrick Nguri asked, arguments have been made that lawyers should not be on social media platforms where they exercise their freedom to make utterances that end up being detrimental to their clients or image of employer, or are interpreted as having certain negative bias in cases where the said lawyers end up being arbiters. What are your thoughts on this? So anyone can speak. Mr. Ramadan, you want to say something?
The question is not very clear. I don't know if perhaps Benjamin understood it better than me, or you can just repeat it. Kindly repeat it, if you don't mind.
I think from how Patrick puts it,
Yes.
he puts it that he makes a case for lawyers being banned from being on social media because most of the utterances are detrimental to the image of either the rule of law or their clients or their employers. And I'll give an example of so many Supreme Court decisions which have highlighted lawyers' roles in terms of social media use and sub judice issues. And they've been pointed specific lawyers to actually engage in what they deem to be professional misconduct. And I see that Ramadan has an opinion on it. So before I go, I'll just leave Patrick with my short opinion is that we can't curate biases. Biases are inherent in human beings. So I wouldn't say the solution is to ban the use of social media, because there's also a value effect of social media in lawyers. It is a way for us to connect with members of the public, with our clients. It is a very easy and accessible way. So I think the probative value of social media by far outweighs that prejudicial effect. So it is in that prejudicial effect that we should seek to cure some of the professional misconduct issues that arise. So perhaps my senior can elaborate more on it.
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. I don't think the general ban, that lost me in terms of there is a ban from lawyers to use social media. I don't think there's a general ban. Lawyers are allowed to use social media. It's just an issue of the principle of sub judice, which we all understand. You cannot comment on a matter that is pending before a court of law. So I cannot go to social media. I'm waiting for a judgment next week. Then I start discussing the case on social media. And you see some of the persons who are making these posts are known lawyers, and everyone knows the matter they are handling. So that's why you find sometimes the court will have to put its foot down just to comment or make a finding on the actions on the Facebook or Twitter posts of a particular scenario. And I'm thinking this is the aspects of professionalism that we're talking about. Do not talk about the case that you're handling, the case that you're still awaiting judgment. Comment after the judgment. Comment after the judgment, discuss the case. What is the finding? Do you agree with the finding? In a very respectful, if you do not agree, yeah, because you're allowed not to agree. If you do not agree with the finding, if you find that, that's why we say the court has erred. You don't say the court was wrong. Yeah. Comment in a very civil manner. Yeah. I don't know
and possibly just to add to that, even when you're commenting, you don't now, take it down and make it personal. And you start blaming the judges of having been biased or having been compromised. You keep the matters legal and strictly professional. And, you on principle disagree with the judicial officer without, dragging him down social media and his children and family and everything else that you think you can pull.
True. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There was a question on mentoring that was asked. The question is, how can one get mentors in specific fields, e.g. maritime law, when the senior lawyers in the given fields are not vocal or don't have a social media presence that can, so how young lawyers can engage them? So, Mr. Ramadan, maybe?
Yeah, you'll find senior lawyers are not on social media. Yeah, that's true. And if they are, perhaps they're not posting as much as some of us are posting. But if I'm in, let's say, maritime law, that's my area of focus. Of course, if that's my area of focus, I know the seniors in that particular area. See how you can engage with them through conferences. This has to be now physical. Look for the senior lawyers. What is this annual? I'm sure there's an annual meeting that we have, that you may have, for this particular area of law. It's maritime law. I've seen trainings in Mombasa by the Kenya Ports Authority on matters maritime law. So attend to this particular conference, see who are the speakers. Is there any lawyer? Engage with them. Some of this, we're not saying everything has to be through social media. The physical aspect has not been lost.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. We've come to the end of our webinar. I'd like to thank everyone that tuned in. I want to thank our panelists. Thank you for creating time this afternoon and joining us. Welcome. When we text you again to join us, please.
Sorry, Brenda, I'm seeing another question here. Sorry to interrupt. There's a question. There's a question in terms of whether the legal position in Tanzania. Yeah, and if I may answer, I don't know if you see that question.
Yes, I've seen it. It's okay. Yes, it's okay.
Yeah, in terms of Tanzania, they do not allow advertising. And there's the professional conduct and I think advertising rules, yeah, which clearly and categorically ban advertising. And in that particular provision, I think that's the only law I've seen in East Africa which allows the giving of flyers. I don't know about Uganda, Augustine, perhaps you may know.
They don't allow giving flyers. No, they don't.
Yes, I've seen, unless I can be corrected, in regulation, I think 127 to 128 talks about you can give flyers, you can sponsor, it allows advertising by sponsoring society activities. What was the other thing? I think those two, there are like three which are quite peculiar, which is good and quite progressive. So yeah, I think but for TZ generally, they do not allow advertising. I'm a Kenyan lawyer, so that's a disclaimer. Let me put a disclaimer. I'm not, perhaps the law has changed.
Thank you for that. I wanted to know as well. We were not able to get Tanzania speaker on time, but we apologize for that. So thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Ramadan will be able to share with us the slides. Then they can be shared to you by Mr. Gabriel. I'd like to welcome you to join the East Africa Law Society. The Young Lawyers specifically have monthly webinars. We will soon have a physical convention or meeting where we can all meet as East Africa Young Lawyers, interact, and I have nothing more to say. Thank you. You may leave.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.